It's mailbag time here at Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nic Rohloff, and if you missed this opportunity to get on the mailbag, make sure you join us for our Tuesday live shows. We go live every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. It's a lot of fun, so make sure you join us in the future, and that is how you get on the mailbag with some questions. We'll start today's mailbag off with Wasim Khan. Hashtag Dolphins. Do you see the Dolphins moving on from McDaniel if the Fins fall flat this year? Wasim, it's a great question, and I absolutely could see that being a possibility for Miami. Mike McDaniel has been the coach for the Dolphins for 3 seasons. They made the playoffs in the first 2 years. They missed it last year. But the truth is, although they've made the playoffs in 2 of his 3 years, they haven't won a playoff game. They weren't very competitive at all in that 2023 playoff game where they traveled to Kansas City. Yeah, did they almost go on the road and beat Buffalo with Skylar Thompson? They were dangerously close. But the truth is, in that season as well, they fell down the stretch. In 2022, they were flashing. They took the league by storm in the first half of the year with their offensive ability. And then in 2023, they did something very, very similar where they were unbelievable. They scored 70 effing points on the Denver Broncos, for crying out loud. But then once again, in November, December, early January, they faltered. They couldn't win the big game. They struggled on the road and then lost their first playoff game before having a really poor down 2024 season. So if Mike McDaniel does not get to the playoffs and the team struggles down the stretch again in 2025, I could absolutely see the Miami Dolphins moving on from him. And I would probably be in that camp as well, that Miami finally has to get off of Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel if they fall flat and miss the playoffs this upcoming season. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. We're putting out more content on IG, whether it's posts, whether it's short form reels. Want more coverage on the Fins? That's the place to get it. And when we get to 1,000 followers, we're doing a special video, aka a Instagram-led mailbag. So help us get there. Follow us today. Dolphins Today IG is the handle. Big Dog! Ask Asante Samuel Jr. or Jaire Alexander. I actually would probably prefer going with Asante Samuel Jr. Is Jaire Alexander better? Yes. Is he... Well, I guess I can't even ask that question because both of them have the same injury risk. Asante Samuel Jr. coming back from that neck injury has dealt with shoulder injuries in the past. Jaire Alexander has dealt with shoulder injuries, dealt with groin, dealt with knee. So both of them have their fair share of injury concerns. But the truth is, Jaire Alexander is 3 years older than Asante Samuel Jr. He's 25. Alexander's 28. Also, Jaire Alexander is going to come at a much hefty price tag. Not by much. I think a Jaire Alexander contract could be 1 year for $7 million with a chance to get up to $10 million due to incentives. Asante Samuel Jr., due to that neck being such a concern and him not just being open to sign, he'd have to get medically cleared after a checkup in early July. I could see that taking a little bit off of his price tag. So the 25-year-old Asante Samuel Jr., you might be able to get him for a 1 year, $6 million contract flat or 1 for 5 or something to that degree. So if I had to choose, I'm taking the younger player with a little bit more upside to stay with your organization long term because he is also cheaper as well. So if I'm choosing between Asante Samuel and Jaire Alexander, I'll take Asante Samuel Jr. Austin with a question. Should the Dolphins get a backup starting guard still? Starting? No. Backup? I think yes. When you think of what Miami has on the offensive line right now, their starters from left to right, at least projected. Patrick Paul, James Daniels, Aaron Brewer, Jonah Savinaya, and then Austin Jackson. With your likely backup offensive lineman being a combination of Liam Eichenberg, Larry Borum, and then Andrew Meyer, potentially, or Keon Smith or something like that. And when I think about what Miami has as those reserves, I don't feel very confident about them. I'll just be blatantly obvious. And I think Omar Kelly makes a good point. He says that the Dolphins' second biggest need, the cornerback, is interior offensive lineman depth. There's Brandon Scherf out there. Isaiah Wynn is still out there. Do I think that they're going to be able to find a high-level player to come into their building and be a backup? Probably not. But I do think Isaiah Wynn could be someone smart to sign because I think he's better than what you have now in terms of his versatility and pedigree. So I would still look to sign a backup guard if you can find a solid one for a solid price, I'm mainly looking at Isaiah Wynn. All right, let's look at this and look at the trade market here. Who's more likely to be traded away from this Dolphins roster? Is it Jalen Ramsey or Jonnu Smith? Probably going to choose Jalen Ramsey. Should have probably phrased this question as who gets traded first. And that would be an interesting answer, but I imagine a lot of people are going to be typing those JRs. Let's move over to YRS with a question. How good do you think Kenneth Grant is going to do? I actually feel pretty solid about how Kenneth Grant is going to perform, not only in his rookie season, but long term. The thing that Kenneth Grant just impresses me is that first step at his size. He is just such a massive human being. And when you watch the tape of him at Michigan, he actually was double teamed more on that interior defensive line than his teammate Mason Graham, who was drafted 5th overall. He's got an incredible motor. He's a good culture builder as well. So that's an added incentive of bringing Kenneth Grant into your building. And with him working alongside Zach Sealer, and then when you look to the outside of that pass rush and you see Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb, you're not going to be able to double inside on the interior, which will free up both Kenneth Grant and Zach Sealer. I got to be honest, there is a world where I think Miami has the best pass rush in football. On a given down, if you have a 4-man front, you can have, let's just say, Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, and then Kenneth Grant and Zach Sealer in the middle. How are you supposed to stop that? And then imagine if you bring a little 5-man pressure and a stunt where you get Sealer and Grant's athleticism on the move, or Chop on the move, or Phillips. How are offensive linemen going to continuously stop our pass rush? I think if the Dolphins defense has an extremely good season, top 10 in the league, which I do think is a reasonable outcome for this team, you're going to really have to look and point towards that front just dominating night in, night out. On the run stopping, on the getting after the passer. If the Dolphins want to have a surprising, successful season, the offense has to take a bounce back, and that defensive front has to carry this defense and almost be Philadelphia Eagles-esque in terms of the way they wreck opposing teams' game plans by getting after the quarterback and plugging up the run game. And I think Kenneth Grant is going to play a large role in that. Let's move over to Rolly. It's not me, I swear. I think someone's impersonating me here. But is there any chance the Dolphins get Jaire Alexander? I don't think so, actually. I know we got that question earlier about if the Dolphins had to choose between Asante Samuel and Jaire. I mentioned this actually on our live show Tuesday, so that is why you make sure you join in and tune in for those live shows. But with Jaire, he wants two things, man. Jaire Alexander wants to get paid, and he wants to play for a contender. He was going to play for a contender in Green Bay, but he wasn't going to get the payday that the Packers wanted to give him, right? They wanted to restructure, lower that money. I think Alexander's going to probably try to get double-digit money in terms of 10, 11, 12 million maybe. Maybe it's a $7 or $8 million deal with incentives on a one-year contract. And then I think he's also going to try to get that from a contender. If you look at Miami, I wouldn't label them as a contender for the Super Bowl. And I wouldn't label them as a team that is probably going to spend $11, $12 million potentially on a corner due to them having to add other positions, extend Jonnu Smith. So I do not think the outcome for Miami in the rest of the offseason has Jaire Alexander in it. Would I love to add him? Yeah, I would. I would choose Asante Samuel Jr. over him, like I said earlier. But no, I really do not believe that the Dolphins ultimately sign Jaire, even though I would absolutely try to sign him. Just don't think he would be interested in Miami, if we're going to be quite frank. Make sure you do subscribe for the latest news and rumors around the Miami Dolphins. And like I said, if you're subscribed, you might be able to join us for that 5 p.m. Eastern Time Tuesday live show we do every week. It's a lot of fun. We talk ball, we answer questions, interact in the chat, and talk about this football team. So hit that sub button and join the channel today. Austin with another question. Will Liam Eichenberg make the roster? Yes, I do believe he will. I do. I think as much as I do not like Liam Eichenberg, and many people know that, I know a lot of people also don't like Liam Eichenberg, I just find it incredibly unrealistic to believe he would get cut. The only way he is not on the 53-man roster is if he somehow suffers a season-ending injury in training camp or preseason, which you never root for injury. So I think Liam's versatility and knowledge of the Mike McDaniel offense and scheme is paramount. Although I don't think he's very good, I do have to admit his ability to play all 5 positions on the O-line's big. He's literally played in his career right tackle, right guard, center, left guard, left tackle. He is capable of playing all 5. And that's pretty important to have as an interior guy as a backup. If one of your guys go down, you don't trust them, but you can put them in and maybe feel okay about it. So I believe Liam Eichenberg is someone Chris Grier, Mike McDaniel values. I know the fans don't for right reasons because he plays terrible, but his knowledge of the scheme and his versatility is very much recognized, and it's why he is still on this team even after being a free agent this year. All right, get your predictions down in the comments section. What will the Dolphins' 2025 record be? I believe in my record prediction, I predicted 10-7. I think it's more or less because I think the schedule's pretty easy, where Miami, if they stay healthy, should be able to start off like 6-2, at worst 5-3. And if they just go, if they start off 6-2, you just got to go 4-5. No, 4-4 the rest of the way. Wait, 6-2, 4-5. Yeah, first math was right. That would get you to 10-7. If you've been around the channel, you know I'm terrible at math. I'm not that smart of a guy. I just watch sports and talk sports. So take it easy in the comments on that little mishap. YRS with another question. How do you feel about the D-line this year? Well, YRS, I kind of answered that earlier when talking about Kenneth Grant. I feel pretty good about it. I do. I talked about the edges working with Kenneth Grant and Zach Sealer on some downs, but I believe Miami made the right adjustments this offseason. It was clear that they didn't have a lot of cap space to sign some of these top defensive linemen for agency, so they didn't. What they do, they went to the draft. They drafted Kenneth Grant at 13. They drafted Jordan Phillips in the 5th round. They drafted Zeke Biggers in the 7th round. They added Alex Huntley in undrafted free agency. Not that that's a big difference maker, but when you draft 3 defensive linemen, there's obviously a legit effort to improve that group. And they need to because they didn't have much there. They let Calais Campbell go. They let Deshaun Hand go. The only people back from last year was Benito Jones and Zach Sealer. So I felt very bad about it going into the draft. I feel much better about it now. Is it going to be a top 15 group in the league? I think that's very dependent on how Kenneth Grant does as a rookie. But Zach Sealer is one of the most underrated defensive linemen in football. And when you factor in them working alongside your edge group, which is one of the best in the NFL, with that trio of Chop, Jalen, and Chubb, well, then I think the defensive line on the interior will probably get the benefit of the doubt. So I feel better than I did 2 months ago, June, May, I don't know, before the draft. I feel much better about it now. All right, that'll do it for today's show. Make sure you follow on Instagram for more daily content around the Fins, post, short form, everything in between. Remember, when we get to 1,000 followers, we're doing a mailbag on our Instagram. So go give us a follow at Dolphins Today, IG.